She told me it was nothing. I owed him, she said, like she was returning a book or paying back a small loan. Her eyes didn't meet mine when she said it. She just stared out the window, like maybe the dark would answer for her. I don't know what you call it when your wife gives her body to another man out of obligation. It's not love. It's not coercion. Not exactly. But it's not choice either. It's a debt. A transaction. One you were never told about. She told me over toast. Not dinner. Not a serious sit-down in the living room. She waited until a quiet Sunday morning, when the sun slanted soft across our old linoleum floor and the house smelled faintly of coffee and dog shampoo. She buttered her bread, took a small bite, then said, "He came back. From the diner. The guy from last year." I blinked, half asleep. "What guy?" She didn't look at me. "The one who pulled the guy off me in the alley. Remember?" I remembered. Of course I remembered. She came home that night shaking, her uniform torn at the shoulder, scratches on her neck, like claws. I held her for hours, filed the police report, got the cameras reviewed, drove her to work for 2 weeks after, slept light, asked about every guy who tipped too much. And I remembered her telling me, voice thick with gratitude, he just appeared out of nowhere. Like he knew, like he was watching. He didn't even wait to be thanked. I never saw him, never learned his name, until today. "He came in last night," she said quietly. "Waited till the place emptied out. Sat at the counter. Ordered black coffee. And then he said I promised him something." I stared at her. "You what?" Her hands were still, her fingers lightly resting on the rim of her plate like they didn't belong to her. "He said, you said you owed me a night." And I guess I did. I said that. After it happened. I was in shock. I didn't know what I was saying. But he remembered. "You didn't owe him anything," I said. My voice rose, but not in anger. It cracked with something I hadn't felt in years. A kind of helpless confusion. "You were attacked. He helped. That doesn't mean." "I went to his place," she said softly. The words hung in the kitchen like smoke. Thick. Stifling. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "I didn't know how to say no," she whispered. It felt like I owed him. And when I tried to leave, he just looked at me like he was disappointed. Like I'd broken a promise. "And so I couldn't finish it." She nodded once. Like that was all it deserved. A nod. That was 3 days ago. I haven't touched her since. I still hear her voice when I sleep. I owed him. As if betrayal could be so clean. As if pain had receipts. She still goes to work. Same diner. Same hours. Same apron, though I noticed she doesn't wear lipstick anymore. Her smile's quieter now. Not gone, just muted. Like she's afraid it might give her away. And me? I've started watching the door. Every night at 10 o'clock. Just in case he comes back. Because if he does, I don't know what I'll do. Or who I'll become. All I know is something broke that night. Not her. Not us. Something deeper. Something nameless. And I don't think it can be fixed. 3 days after she told me, I noticed the bedroom smelled like cloves. Not strong. Not perfume. Not some bottle I could hold and accuse. Just faint. Like skin still holding the memory of something that didn't belong to us. She said she showered when she got home. I believed her. I believe a lot of things I shouldn't. She's quiet now, more than before. Not in the withdrawn way you'd expect from someone racked with guilt. It's subtler than that. She folds laundry with more care. She double-checks the locks before bed. She says thank you when I hand her a mug, like I've done something sacred. There's a sort of a reverence to her now, as if she's mourning us while I'm still standing in the room. The man didn't leave a name. That's what she told me. He didn't need one. Like that was normal. Like anonymity made it easier somehow. Or maybe harder. She described his apartment only once. I didn't ask, but she told me anyway, as if spilling details might dilute them. It was clean, she said. Too clean. Like he doesn't really live there. Nothing on the counters. No dishes in the sink. Not even dust. That stuck with me. The idea of a man who doesn't live in his own life, who waits a year to collect a sentence spoken in fear, not because he wants you, but because he wants your dead. I started looking for him, not openly, not obsessively, just patterns. Every now and then, I'd sit across the street from her diner, watch through the fogged windshield of my car. She didn't know, or maybe she did and let me anyway. Some nights, I thought I saw someone watching too tall figure near the bus stop, face turned just enough to blur in shadow, but I could never be sure. Maybe I was looking for a ghost. Maybe he already knew he'd taken what he came for. She didn't flinch when I touched her shoulder in passing, but she didn't lean into it either. That was new. She still slept beside me, but she started facing the wall. One night, I woke to her whispering. I thought it was a dream at first, but when I sat up, I saw her lips still moving. Just 3 words, barely audible. "I'm so sorry." Not to me. Not like that. Her eyes were shut, her voice too even, like she was apologizing to someone who wasn't there anymore. The next morning, I asked her about it. She laughed. "You're dreaming now too?" She burned the eggs that day. She never burns the eggs. Something was off about the walls. I started seeing things differently. Our bedroom looked colder. Not emptier, just rearranged in ways I couldn't name. A photo moved half an inch. A pillow that smelled like soap, but not our kind. Her laundry basket turned toward the wall like it had something to hide. I know it sounds small, paranoid, but grief makes you notice what doesn't want to be noticed. I started writing things down. Not like a madman, just notes. Observations. Dates. His coffee order, maybe. The hour she left the house, the time it took her to come back. I wasn't looking for evidence. I was looking for the moment she slipped away. And then something happened. One night, I heard a knock. Not the front door. The back. The one we never use. The one facing the alley. She was asleep, or pretending. Her breathing was even. Her arms stretched out like nothing in her world was unsettled. I crept down, heart hammering like I was the one with something to hide. No one was there. But a matchbook was tucked under the doormat. Black, worn, with the name of a bar neither of us had ever been to. I flipped it open. Only one match missing. On the inside flap, in small block letters. "You said a night." No name. No number. But the message was clear. It wasn't over. I burned the match. I lit it on the back porch, just past midnight, my breath clouding in the cold. Let it curl into blue flame before it singed my fingers and died. The matchbook went into the trash. I didn't tell her. She'd just call it a prank. A joke. Something that didn't mean what it meant. But it meant something. I stopped asking questions out loud. She didn't lie, not directly, but there was something practiced in her answers now. Like she'd rehearsed them in the mirror first. The pauses felt wrong. Too perfect. Too weighted. One night, I asked if she remembered his face. She hesitated, then said, "Not really." He looked normal. Normal. That word stuck like bone in my throat. No scars. No tattoos. Nothing specific. She shrugged. I was in shock. It was dark. That wasn't what she'd said last year. Back then, she described him vividly. Sharp jaw. Crooked smile. Hands like a mechanic. She told it with almost admiration. Now, nothing. Like someone had wiped him clean from her mind. She wasn't wearing her necklace anymore. The one I gave her on our 5th anniversary. Small, gold, with a tiny etched J on the underside. She wore it every day for 4 years. Slept in it. Swam in it. Said it felt like a piece of me against her chest. Now it sat tangled in her jewelry dish, like it didn't fit anymore. I tried to ask, casual, "You stopped wearing it?" She didn't look up. It got caught on my apron at work. Almost broke. I nodded. Said nothing. That night, I found it wasn't broken at all. Just fine. Clasp still working. Chain intact. I started looking through her things. I hated myself for it, but I did. Her purse. Her coat pockets. her phone while she showered. I didn't find love notes. No suspicious texts. But I did find a second key. Not to our house. Not to her car. I tried both. It was small. Silver. Worn at the teeth like it had been used often. When I asked, she flinched. Where'd you find that? In your coat. She blinked. That's probably for the locker at work. We all have one. But you already have a locker key. She looked down. Then I don't know. She left it on the counter. I watched it sit there for 3 days before it disappeared. And then I remembered something else. The man didn't come back after a year. He came back exactly 1 year later. To the day. I checked her old shifts. Called in a favor from her manager. Lied about needing a copy of the roster. He came back on the anniversary of the night he saved her. Like it was an appointment. A scheduled transaction. That's when I realized I didn't know who he was, but he knew us. He didn't wait a year out of coincidence. He waited because he could. Because he knew where we lived. Where she worked. What she owed. And I started wondering. What else had she promised? I went to the alley behind the diner. The one where she was attacked. It looked smaller than I remembered. More cramped. The bricks were stained black in places, and someone had spray-painted a crude crown near the dumpster. I stood there, trying to picture it. Her pressed against the wall. The sound of her yelling. Him stepping in like some silent, brutal savior. But there were no cameras facing this way anymore. They'd been moved after the remodel. No proof. No record. Just her word. And suddenly, that didn't feel like enough. I asked her again that night. About what she'd said to him. After he helped her. Before he left. I just said thank you. And that I owed him one. You sure? Yes. Because that's a strange phrase, don't you think? Owe you a night. Who says that? She looked up then. And for the first time since all of this began, her face cracked. I don't remember what I said. She whispered. Okay. I was scared. He was covered in blood, and he smiled at me like he'd done something permanent. I said what I had to say to get out of there. I nodded slowly, then asked the thing I wasn't sure I wanted the answer to. Did you love him? She looked up, startled. No. God, no. It wasn't like that. But you let him touch you. She didn't speak. Did you kiss him? Did you lie still? Did you want him to? Stop, she said sharply. You weren't there. She was right. I wasn't. And that was the cruelest part. I wasn't there when he saved her. I wasn't there when he took her. I wasn't even in the room when she decided she owed him something she could never owe. And then she said it again, softer this time. He saved my life. I stared at her. And for the first time, I didn't believe her. Because saving someone doesn't come with a clock. Or a key. Or a whisper a year later that sounds like, you promised me a night. It took 2 weeks to find him. Not his name. Not a face. Just a direction. A thread. But that was enough. Turns out, people leave traces. Even ghosts. I started at the bar from the matchbook. The broken lantern. Rundown place near the industrial yards. Half the bulbs in the sign were dead, and the ones that still worked buzzed like flies. The inside reeked of damp with an old regret. I walked in mid-afternoon when the place was nearly empty. One bartender. 3 men in silence. A jukebox wheezing out something twangy and lost. I sat down, ordered whatever was cheapest, and showed the bartender the matchbook. You give these out? He barely looked. Used to. Before the owner died. When was that? 1.5 years ago. Why? I hesitated. Looking for someone. Came in here about a year ago. Tall, dark hair, maybe a scar on his hand. Drinks his coffee black. Doesn't talk much. The bartender snorted. You just described half the people who come through here. But then his face shifted. Just slightly. You know his name? I asked. He shook his head, but not convincingly. People don't use names here. Not real ones. Then what did they call him? The bartender leaned in a little. Voice low. He went by Cole. That's all I ever heard. Tipper. Quiet. Real polite. That was something. A word. A start. I left a 20 on the bar and walked out with more questions than answers. That night, I brought up the name. Cole, I said casually while she brushed her hair. Does that ring a bell? Her hand froze mid-stroke. I watched her eyes in the mirror. No, she said. Too quickly. You're sure? I've never met anyone named Cole. She turned away from her reflection, like it might betray her. I nodded, said nothing, walked out. The next day, I called in sick and drove back to the Lantern. Waited around until someone remembered more. Eventually, an older man at the end of the bar piped up. Cole? Yeah, the guy with the gloves. Always wore gloves. Even in summer. Black leather. Said they were sentimental. That chilled me. Not because it was strange. Because she told me he touched her face afterward. And his hands were warm. No gloves. So either she lied, or this wasn't just one visit. You know where he stayed? The old man nodded slowly. Rooming house over on 5th. Top floor. Paid cash. Never made trouble. I drove there next. A crumbling brick building with sun-bleached curtains in the windows and a smell like rot. The landlord was drunk before noon, but she let me look at the old ledger for another 20. Cole T. Room 9, 3 months. No forwarding address. No last name. Just a note in the margin. Left key under door. Room cleared. I convinced her to let me see the room. It was empty now, except for the smell of dust and something faintly sweet. Like cologne spilled once, long ago. The wallpaper peeled in long curls. The window faced west, sunset light filtered in at a slant, painting the dust gold. But there was something carved into the wooden frame above the door. Just one word. Settled. Not a name. Not a threat. A receipt. As I stood there, something slid into place. That night at his apartment wasn't an ambush. It wasn't spontaneous. It was the fulfillment of a quiet, sick contract. I remembered how she said, he looked at me like I'd broken a promise. Because she had. And somewhere in the middle of my thoughts, I realized something worse. She didn't tell me the night he came back. Not right after. She waited. She let days pass. I went home with that word still rattling around in my chest, settled, like a bell someone wouldn't stop ringing. She was asleep again when I got in. Or pretending. Her breathing had that perfect rhythm, like someone who wants to be mistaken for peaceful. I stood over her a long time, thinking of her skin under someone else's hands. Not warm. Not loved. Just returned. Paid. That's what she was that night. Not desired. Returned merchandise. I wanted to shake her awake. Scream. Demand the whole story. But I didn't. Instead, I opened her nightstand. Quietly. She kept a small notebook there. Same kind she used for grocery lists. I flipped through it. Nothing, at first. Just crossed out shopping reminders. Notes for work. Then, near the back, a page torn unevenly, like it had been ripped out hastily. The next page had a name. Cole Tarrant. Below it, a number. An address. A date circled. 1 year ago. The day he saved her. The day she made the promise. And under that, written in her handwriting, was a phrase I didn't recognize at first, until I whispered it aloud. Debt must be honored in full. I sat there for a long time, holding the book in my lap. And I knew then. She didn't go because he made her. She went because she believed it. Somewhere between gratitude and fear, she convinced herself that one act of protection deserved another of submission. She gave herself to him, body and silence and all, not because he forced her, but because something in her agreed. And that was the worst betrayal of all, because it wasn't a single night. It was a belief, one she never questioned, not even for me. She didn't see the notebook was missing, or maybe she did and decided not to ask. That's the thing about guilt. It turns you into your own jailer. She cooked dinner like nothing had changed. Stirred sauce in circles, her mouth drawn tight in that permanent half-frown she wore now like jewelry. The kind of woman who didn't cry, just hardened. I watched her serve me like she always did. Bowl placed gently. Fork turned inward. Napkin folded on the left even though I'm right-handed. It used to be muscle memory. Now it felt like a ritual. Like she was trying to summon something back. I waited until halfway through the meal. Then I said, "You knew his name." Her hand froze. She didn't look up. "What?" "Cole Tarrant." "You wrote it down. Along with the date. The address. Even a quote." She didn't respond. Her eyes stayed on her plate. "That must be honored in full," I said slowly. "That's what you wrote." Still silence. I pressed my palms flat on the table. "So tell me, how many nights did you owe him?" She looked up then, and I saw something I hadn't seen since that first day. Fear. Not of me. Of truth. Her voice was brittle. "Just the one." I shook my head. "No. Not if you wrote it down like scripture. Not if you circled the date a year in advance. Not if you kept his name like a keepsake." She opened her mouth. Closed it again. I waited. And then she said it. "I saw him more than once." I didn't breathe. After he helped me, he didn't vanish. He'd wait outside sometimes. Not every night. Just now and then. Said he was making sure I got home safe. That it wasn't a one-time thing. That protecting me meant follow-through. "Follow-through," I echoed. "That's what you called it?" "I didn't invite it," she said quickly. "But I didn't stop it either. I was scared. And maybe flattered. He made me feel seen." My stomach turned. "And you didn't think to tell your husband? The man who held you when you came home bloodied? Who couldn't sleep for weeks without watching the window?" She flinched. "I didn't want to make it real." I laughed. Sharp. Cold. "Real is what you let inside you." Tears welled up then. Not loud. Just a single line down her cheek. "He didn't ask for anything at first," she whispered. "Just time. Just conversation. Coffee at closing. A walk to the corner." I stood slowly. "And what did he ask for later?" She didn't answer. Because she didn't have to. I walked to the bedroom and came back with the notebook. Set it on the table. "Do you want to know what I see when I look at this?" I asked. "I see a woman preparing. Not breaking down. Not being blackmailed. Preparing. You didn't go to him to escape. You went because you chose him over me." Her shoulders shook once. And then she said something that broke me in a way I wasn't ready for. I needed to feel like I had power over something. My hands curled into fists at my sides. "Power." I repeated. She nodded. "After the assault, I felt hollow. Dirty." I kept reliving it. "And then he came. He looked at me like I wasn't broken. Like I owed him. Yes, but also like I mattered. Like he saw value in me. And I didn't?" She looked up with glassy eyes. "You pitied me." It hit like a punch to the ribs. Because she wasn't entirely wrong. I remembered how I held her that night, how gentle I was. How careful. Like she might crack in my arms. I thought I was helping. Maybe I was. But maybe I also stripped her of something in the process, her ability to define her own trauma. I never asked what she wanted. I just tried to fix her. But none of that justified this. "Why didn't you stop?" I asked. She shrugged, helpless. "Because it started to feel like fate." I stared at her. The woman I married. The woman who now sat in front of me saying things that made my skin crawl with recognition. Because she wasn't talking about love. She was talking about ownership. A man saved her life and quietly collected on the debt with time, attention, and eventually, her body. And somewhere along the line, she stopped fighting it, not because she wanted it, but because she thought it balanced the scales. That she was returning to neutral. But in doing so, she tipped the scales for me. For us. For everything. I opened a drawer. Set down a single sheet of paper. Her eyes flicked to it. "Read it." Froze. It was a lease application. 1 bedroom. Downtown. Just my name on it. She didn't speak. So I did. "I'm not staying." Her voice cracked. "You're leaving me?" "You already left," I said. "I just showed up late." She reached out, but I stepped back. I don't hate you, I said, but I can't crawl into bed every night with a woman who repaid a man's violence with intimacy and called it even. She sobbed once, then twice, and that's when I knew the tears weren't for me. They were for her, her idea of justice, her belief that this was how life worked. I walked to the door, paused. There's no name for what you did, I said, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. And then I left. I didn't leave right away. I packed slowly over the course of a week, one drawer at a time. I didn't want the dramatic exit. No slamming doors, no storming off. Just quiet detachment, like pulling a splinter you've lived with too long to feel anymore. She stayed in the house, watched me like a ghost watches a body it once belonged to. I didn't speak much. Neither did she. Our words had done enough damage already. I took what I needed, left the furniture, left the plates, the mugs, even the knife set we picked out during that trip to the outlet store, back when we still held hands in public. I didn't want reminders. I wanted absence. A new apartment with nothing in it that had ever touched her. The night before I moved out, she left something on the kitchen table. A letter. Not in an envelope. Just a single sheet, her handwriting small and clean, like always. I didn't read it right away. Instead, I stood in the doorway of the living room and looked at her one last time. She didn't turn around. Just sat on the edge of the couch, her fingers laced so tightly her knuckles were white. I hope someday, she said quietly, you understand why I thought it was the right thing. I didn't answer. Because that was the problem, wasn't it? She still thought what she did was righteous. That debt had rules. That obligation could be honored with flesh. I left before sunrise. The apartment I moved into is small. One window. No art. The kind of place you don't show off, just sleep in. But it was mine, and that was enough. I didn't unpack much that first week. Just clothes, toothbrush, a single lamp, and the letter. Still folded, still unopened. I finally read it on a Wednesday, sitting on the edge of the bathtub with the fan humming above me like static. It wasn't long, just 3 paragraphs. She wrote about that night, the assault, how she froze, how she thought she'd die, how the man, Cole, appeared like something out of myth, and for months afterward, he became a symbol, not of desire, but of balance. She wrote, I know now that I was trying to rewrite the story, to make it fair. He gave me safety. I gave him myself. It felt clean that way. Clean. That word again. But it wasn't, she wrote. And I see that now. It was a second violence. One I let happen. One I welcomed, thinking it was strength. But it was just silence. I read that last line 3 times. Then I folded the letter, tucked it in the back of my dresser. Didn't throw it away. Because she was right. What happened to her in that alley was an attack. What happened in that apartment a year later? That was a transaction. But the lie we both lived afterward, the silence, the half-truths, the shrinking warmth, that was the violence that killed us. I stopped asking if it was cheating, if it was consent, if it was trauma or penance or misplaced gratitude. Because the question didn't matter. The result was the same. She left me with something I couldn't hold. A betrayal with no clean shape. No word for it. Just the echo of a promise she whispered to another man in a moment I'll never be able to rewrite. And then, a few weeks later, I got a voicemail. Blocked number. I almost didn't listen, but something in me pressed play. It was short. A man's voice. Calm. Measured. I never meant to ruin anything, he said. She said she owed me a night. I didn't ask for more. But she kept coming back. Click. No name. But I knew. And suddenly, everything twisted again. Because I'd spent so long thinking she went to him once. Thinking she traded herself like currency. But it wasn't about a debt anymore, was it? It was a choice. Again. And again. And again. That night, I finally cried. Not for her. Not for him. For the version of me that never saw it coming. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.